Mm. Hello, and welcome back to Your Health Transformed. I am your host, Dr. Hamilton, and I'm super excited to have our guest today, Chuck Rinker. He is the founder of AI program Revolutionizing Healthcare, now known as iHealth Assist. So I'm super excited to talk to you today because I'm really big into tech and AI and healthcare and how it can help almost like revolutionize, kind of like what you guys do, our current healthcare system. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamilton. I appreciate you having me, and you are speaking my language already.
That's great. So I personally kind of started coming from a surgeon background. I started getting more into like tech and AI maybe about 5 years ago because I'm like, there's got to be a way to be able to use technology and AI to kind of expand physicians, expand providers, however that looks, help out patients. So I guess kind of we'll start with what your vision, why you kind of started this company and kind of big picture, what do you think about all this?
No, great question, and I'll try to be brief because I tend to be long-winded. But I've spent my whole career in human engagement technologies, and I think people believe that AI is new. AI has been around since the 1980s when I was first doing military simulations for the government. You know, how do you
Yeah.
train soldiers? How do you train military personnel to do certain jobs and all? And that was a form of AI. And then I got into game development. Lucky enough to get into sports gaming, directed the NCAA Madden football franchise, which quite honestly is nothing more than
Wow.
22 artificially intelligent characters running around the field and teaching AI how to play football. So it's really nothing new. The transition to this iHealth Assist is a little bit of a personal story, but I like sharing it because I have several family members that are in the healthcare system as frontline workers, HCPs. Some of them in the gastrointestinal world, some of them are frontliners at cancer centers. And unfortunately, about 5 years ago, my wife came down with breast cancer. And on the day she finished her radiation, I was diagnosed with late stage colon cancer, only to find 3 years later during my clean slate, yay, 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 my wife got her second bout of breast cancer.
Mhm.
So, but she's all healthy and we're all healthy. But that last, let's call it 6 or 7 years of our life, 5 or 6 years of our life, really became overwhelming to the point of just going, well, you just get exhausted. And the amount of stress that the patients go through. I know we talk about physician burnout, and that's more than real problem. And we're actually addressing that with iHealth Assist as our first launch in the NHS in the UK right now, because they have their own struggling frontline worker issues as well. But there's just this whole strain on the healthcare system overall. So we were building these gaming characters, these digital personalities that would help with marketing. They were fun to engage with. Everybody's probably seen them one place or another. Avatars talking and selling stuff to you, And we were down that commercial path. But as we engaged into this battle for our lives, literally in the
Yeah.
cancer world, 3 C's in 3 years is not a good track record. When I mean C's,
Yeah.
the cancer word. We actually rebranded Personas and we called it Personas with a Heart. And that's our tagline for iHealth Assist. So we put a little heart in the Personas logo, and we started repurposing our Personas AI technologies to serve patients and physicians.
Yeah.
And that's really where we ended up today.
Wow. No, that's a great story. So can you kind of give a little bit more context to like you and your wife going through what you went through? What did you see was maybe either faults in the system or gaps where you feel like AI or technology could have significantly helped in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to give the answer. And the answer actually isn't the current product line we're working on, but on our roadmap. And you'll understand once I give you that reasoning. The first word I bring to mind is overwhelming. Um, like all people, all physicians, especially oncologists, tell you not to do exactly what everybody does, which is jump on the internet, pull up the old ACA website and go, dear Lord, what's my probability of being here in 5 years? And that's the worst thing you can do in the world. And I went down that path. So it's the amount of information that's overwhelmingly coming at you from all different sources, but then the stress of the healthcare providers, the patients, the surgeons, the oncologists, even just the nurse practitioners that are all trying to help you go through this struggle you're having over and over. And everybody can't have a personal patient advocate. You just can't.
Yeah.
So to serve as a way to pare down, vet, and deliver that information and have it accessible to a patient or a physician or any HCP for that matter, was really where we started to shift in starting to build these solution pieces. Because even though you know this all too well, when I was diagnosed, I was granularizing, you know, where's my tumor, what's the size, what's the grade of the tumor, all that good stuff. And I was just staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning reading clinical trials and all this stuff. But I can't sit there and just take up my oncologist time for 4 hours and say, hey, you know, Dr. Weeby, who's wonderful. That's something my wife and I share that I hope nobody else has to share. We share oncologist.
Wow.
But to say, Dr. Weeby, spend 4 hours with me explaining this stuff to me, you can't do that. So we were looking at ways of relieving burden. And what we're finding is, as powerful as AI is really about human communication, not human replication. People get fooled into that. There are, I'll call them competitors, that try to make their human human AI look and sound and act just like a human. We don't do that. We play it down and make it an engaging character. It's the whole reason in the world that, you know, 70% of the world knows who Mario is. Um,
Yeah.
but only, you know, 20% of the world know who the vice president is. People, if you want reality, you'll talk to a real person. What you want is a communication engine, a way to make a human connection with your patients, not replace humans. So the point there is that what we did is started tackling some of those simple problems, um, like how do you improve outcomes for the population? And that, as we all know, starts with clinical trials. Why are clinical trials not as successful as they could be? Well, it's hard to recruit the right demographic, especially when you're trying to do trials related around underserved communities. How do you onboard them? How do you get their consent? How do you teach them about the pros and cons? That's a heavy labor lift on your clinical trial staff. And then more importantly, how do you keep them in a trial, especially if it's a multi-year trial? So we were working with RTI Institute and we started building digital avatars. So if you're a young Hispanic female and you want to be in this oboe trial, you don't want to talk to me. I'm the 56-year-old middle-aged white guy that no young Hispanic girl that's having opioid addiction out of wedlock wants to talk to.
Yeah.
So we create the avatars that will reach out to those communities and then talk to them in their language. We speak 148 languages. We have a patent.
Wow.
We even do sign language. We can now
Wow.
start recruiting members of the deaf community into our clinical trial work. And then how do you get them consent onboarded? How do you retain them? How do you keep that engagement platform out there without depending on volunteers or plain clinical staff to be on the phone all the time trying to chase people down for their, you know, physical updates or follow-ups with their clinical trial? And then we started focusing on the patients. We have a unit that's being deployed in NHS right now for those simple things like, how do you get in and out of a hospital? When we were going through our cancer treatments and I was going through chemo, my wife's in radiation, I'm doing all my scans, I'm flying down to MD Anderson, I'm going to this huge campus that
Yeah.
is overwhelming for anybody. How do you get where you want to go timely? How do you not be 15 minutes late so your oncologist has now lost 15 minutes of their day? How do you do all that? So we built these avatars. I don't know if this is on camera, but this is a demo unit that's going to London, matter of fact, tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
So how do you greet those and those patients? You can walk up to it and say things as simple as, oh, if someone told me I'm here for a scan. Oh, you need to be in the imaging lab. It's on the 3rd floor. But it's not trying to learn how to use an iPhone, not how to download an app. You know, you don't have to go to a QR code. You just talk to it like it's another patient advocate standing at the front door. So that's the way we're kind of relieving the stress on patients in the hospital environments. And the whole goal of iHealth Assist is to start creating these solutions for a more, let's call it a more patient advocate role and physician advocate, healthcare professional advocate role. And that's where the AI technology advancements over the last several years are really starting to make that reality, not just a pipe dream.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So it's just some follow-up questions. So say people are in clinical trials, because you're right, like one of the biggest things is reaching underserved, because a lot of it's always access issues, right? So you can kind of update me on, I'm curious to how you guys go to where they are, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, because that's always been the problem, right? Now with telemedicine, virtual medicine, obviously that increases people's access, but for something like that that needs a lot of explanation multiple follow-ups, like I guess the accessibility of this,
Mhm,
like how do you get to them instead of like the patients having to go physically to some building or
mhm,
hospital. And then you mentioned like, so the avatar, can the patients pick their avatar? So like, or if you're doing a clinical trial for
mhm.
underserved diverse, how do you guys decide the avatar? Like African American female, like this age group, I don't know. Do you put the avatar, the person that you're recruiting?
Mhm.
That's cool to me. So I'm just
Couple
curious.
couple answers in there, I think. And I apologize. I know I ranted previously, so there were probably 14 questions out of my last rant.
Okay.
Um, but to follow up, as far as the accessibility on how you reach them, yes, we do have them in certain facilities, like the Healthy Nevada project was utilizing the unit where we would have a kiosk similar to the one I showed you at the physical location. So as they're getting, that's a point of care type implementation.
Okay.
So we do have visibility and we have the ability to deployment of point of care. All their brains that we talk about are up in the cloud, so it doesn't really matter physically. Now, once you've got their attention, or you're trying to go out to social media and say, okay, I'm going to get on social media and I want to recruit the, let's call it early preteen African American females, you would find the social media channels. Now, we're not the marketing experts, we're not the social media experts. We work with the actual clinical trial teams. They tell us what they want to create from an avatar. And yes, you are allowed to select your own avatar. So
Mm.
like with the oboe trial, which was a trial still going on, that we're participating with RTI, um, it's for studying the effects of opioid addiction on unborn babies and how it affects them over a 5-year period after they're born, regardless of how the mother became addicted to opioids. That's obviously a pandemic level thing anyway.
Yeah.
So they had a certain target demographic. So then we would work with them and say what characters, what avatars, male, female, not non-binary, will be. And we have, I think, 4 or 5 that they can choose from. And what are they? What are they as a patient? What are they comfortable speaking with? And there's some interesting clinical studies and clinical trials that blew my mind when I read them. And it shows that when you talk to an avatar, a relatable avatar versus a human, you actually give more accurate data. You don't, and the thesis or theory behind it is the concept of being judged, the concept
I
of
was
being
wondering
related.
about that.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be judged. They're more trusting of that than the human engagement. So that was pretty interesting to us to find out that you can actually increase trust and the accuracy and credibility of the data you're gathering at the same time. So that was pretty eye-opening as well. So yes, you can pick the demographics. We work with the patient experience teams to define the demographics of who you're trying to target, put them on the social media channels, and then we've been very, I'd say the most popular, if I can use that word, or let's say most deployed implementation is actually during the e-consent process. And you can do that through any web page, mobile phone, web page, location based. So if you're being recruited and you're a volunteer, your clinical trial personnel, or your CTA gets on the phone and says, "Hey, thanks for your interest in. I'm doing a clinical trial right now for cancer survivors. Thanks for your participation in this, and I think I'm in one called Amplify study. I want you to consent it." So then you would literally not have to go into the facility and not have to talk to the live CTA and go through a physical consent product process. You would log into a website we give you, put in your anonymized code,
Hmm.
and then it would provide you with the e-consent interview right through your web browser, and then you would sign off on the e-consent, and then it would be double blinded back at the trial site.
Oh, that's interesting.